All right, let's unbox a Dutch kit together so you can see exactly how it works and what comes inside. So, first, you're going to get this cute little envelope. You're just going to open it up. It's going to have everything that you need in there. So, let's go ahead and open it. Now, inside, there'll be this little packet. It's going to unfold, and you're going to see there's this little pocket inside the packet that's going to have some forms. It's going to have your test strips, and it's going to have your prepaid shipping label in there as well. So, let's walk you through the instructions that are on the inside of the packet. So, first of all, what day of the month do I collect? Now, if you don't have a cycle or you're postmenopausal, you can collect any day. If you have a cycle, then there's a window of the month that you need to collect. So, assuming you have a 28-day cycle, your window that you want to collect is between days 19 and 22. So, day one is going to be the first day of your period. So, you would count out the first day of your period would be day one, and you'd count out from there 19 to 22. Now, if your cycle is longer or shorter, then you're going to adjust it accordingly. So, for example, my cycle is 29 days. So, my window would be days 20 through 23. So, and if it was shorter, then I would just adjust it the other way. Now, if you have any trouble figuring this out, or say you're perimenopausal and your cycle's been irregular or something like that, there is a customer service number on here that I'm going to give you. Call them and they will help you figure out when to collect. So, don't worry about that. The customer service will completely help you figure out when you're going to want to collect. The next section is if you take any hormones. Generally, topical hormones are fine. Just if you're taking, do not take oral DHEA 48 hours before collection, any oral estrogen, pregnenolone 72 hours before your first collection. However, don't skip your birth control. So if you're on birth control, don't skip that to do a Dutch test. Okay. Restrictions for food and supplements. There's just a few restrictions here. So you kind of want to plan accordingly. If you're going to do a Dutch test for 48 hours, so 2 days before collecting, don't want to eat any avocados, bananas, or fava beans. And then if you are on any of the following supplements listed at the bottom, like tyrosine, L-dopa, phenylalanine, mucuna, or quercetin, you just want to make a note that you are on those. All right, next you'll see when to collect. So the day that you actually, it's going to be over the course of 2 days. You're going to start in the evening on day one, and you're going to collect into the following morning. Keep in mind on the day of collection, you do have a fluid restriction of 40 ounces total, and you can't consume any alcohol or caffeine. And that's on both days that you're collecting. So, day one, you're going to take your first sample around dinner time, which is approximately 5 p.m. Keep in mind, no fluids for 2 hours before your samples. So, if you're going to collect at 5, you'd stop drinking at 3. Then you're going to collect your second sample at bedtime, approximately 10 p.m. Now, if you're like me and you go to bed later, like I collected my first sample for at dinner time at 6 and my bedtime at 11. Or you can go the other way. If say you go to bed at 9 and you want to collect dinner time at 4, that's fine. You want this to look like what's normal for you so we can see what's your normal pattern. So that's absolutely fine. Then, if you get up overnight, there is an optional overnight sample that you can collect. And then the following morning, whatever time you naturally wake, within 10 minutes of waking up, you want to make sure you get up and collect your next sample. And then, whenever that is, 2 hours after that, you're going to collect your final sample. So, if you got up at 7, then you're going to collect again at 9, keeping in mind again in the morning, no alcohol or caffeine before you've collected your first samples, and then no more than 1 cup of fluids between samples 3 and 4. And honestly, I think that's probably the most challenging thing is just really that fluid restriction because we don't want the samples to be too diluted. All right. So here are the strips, and I'll show you in the next slide. I'll show you actually a picture of what the strips look like. But basically, they're these little paper strips, and you want to urinate directly on it, and you want to leave, and then afterwards, you leave it open to dry for at least 24 hours. Once all your strips have completely dried and been labeled, you put them back in the plastic bag. So now here at the bottom of this page, you'll see need more information. Go to dutchtest.com for video instructions or call 503-687-2050 to talk to a customer service representative. So here's if you're having trouble figuring out, say your cycle has been irregular, you're not sure what date when your window is that you're supposed to collect, or if you have any questions at all, call this number. They're extremely helpful. They will help you figure it out. All right, here are what the strips look like. So at the top on the left here, that paper is absorbent. That's the part you want to pee on, and it doesn't have to be in between those two lines. The paper is absorbent, so it just kind of will absorb the liquid. And then the rest of the paper is kind of water resistant. So you'll see how it works. And so you just pee on that, and then you let it sit out for 24 hours. Make sure you use the corresponding. So you'll see on the right here, it each paper strip, it has the corresponding time that you're going to collect. So there's a paper strip for the overnight, there's a paper strip for sample 1, there's a paper strip for sample 2. Make sure you use the according one, and then you actually make a note of the date and time that you do actually collect, and you label it on there so you have everything all labeled and recorded accurately. Then you'll also find this requisition form in there, and this is just going to have your personal info. So, your name, your personal details, your address. You're going to write down the times you collected your samples. You're going to choose which version of the Dutch test you're doing. If it's the first one, usually I have everyone do the Dutch complete because that's the sex hormones and the adrenals and the oat test. There are, you can choose individual ones, and I often do that if we're like retesting just something specific. There, fill in if you're on any hormone supplements, if you're on any prescriptions. On the back of the page, there's a few little check boxes and questionnaires at the top. Then there's one for specifically for women and men, and then another little questionnaire. And then what are the top issues you hope this test will help you resolve? And then please list any additional medications or supplements that you are currently taking. So that's the requisition form. And then here's the payment form. Now keep in mind, this is at the time of recording this video. These are the prices. These are the lab fees. So the total lab fee for a Dutch test at this time of recording is $300. And then the ones underneath that, the 180s and the 160, that's if you're doing individual testing. So again, most of my clients start off with the Dutch complete, which is doing the full panel, which is when I'm talking about Dutch, that's what I'm talking about. So that's the 300. Then keep in mind, if you are doing Dutch test with me, this does not include the price of my consultation and care plan that we do afterwards. This is literally just the lab fee that's going directly to Dutch for them to process your sample. And then you box everything up, and I just folded everything back up, put it back in the packet, and then there's a prepaid shipping label. You can drop it off at any UPS point and it gets shipped off to the lab. Once the lab receives it, they usually take a week or two to analyze your sample. They will send me an email when it's ready, and then I will reach out to you and letting you know that your results are ready, and then we will schedule a time to sit down together, review your results, and I will give you a detailed care plan tailored to you based off of your results, and we will go from there.